हेलो दोस्तों, हमारे चैनल नौकरी पक्की में आपका स्वागत है। पिछले कुछ दिनों में हमने काफी सारे लोगों से बात करी और ये समझा कि लोगों को इंटरेस्टिंग जॉब्स जो इंडिया में है उनके बारे में जानने की काफी क्यूरियोसिटी है। इन सभी जॉब्स में से सबसे ज्यादा जो हमारे व्यूअर्स को क्यूरियोसिटी थी वो थी सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर के बारे में जानने। तो आज हमारे साथ हैं गूगल में काम करने वाले मिस्टर विश्वजीत। विश्वजीत जो है वो गूगल में एज अ सीनियर स्टाफ सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर की तरह काम कर रहे हैं। इन्होंने 16 साल गूगल में काम किया है। तो विश्वजीत, आपका नौकरी पक्की में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है और हम बहुत खुश हैं कि आज आप हमारे व्यूअर्स के साथ अपना एक्सपीरियंस और इंटरेस्टिंग जर्नी अपनी शेयर करेंगे। तो सबसे पहले विश्वजीत चाहेंगे कि थोड़ा सा अपने बारे में आप नौकरी पक्की चैनल को बताएं।
First of all, thanks a lot, Priyank. Thanks for hosting me and having this. I'm super excited about having this conversation. Just to introduce myself, I grew up in Bangalore. I went to school in Bangalore, and I enjoyed science and maths. So I was decent at it. I also enjoyed it. It was very interesting. So I continued in the same track. Somewhere in the middle, I realized biology मेरे बस की बात नहीं है. And it's not interesting enough for me to kind of go deeper. Technology was fascinating for me, so I went into the engineering stream, and I joined a computer science engineering course. And 4 years later, when I was graduating, I interviewed at Google. And that's a great place for software engineers. So I applied, and luckily I got in. And then that was my entry into the professional life. There I started as a junior engineer working on smaller problems. And over the last 16 years, I worked on Google Maps. I've spent a few years on Google Maps, a few years on Android. I worked on a couple of teams and problems in the Android area. Then I've spent many years on search, on different parts of search. And even right now, I'm working as an engineer on the search team out of the Bangalore office.
Great. बहुत बढ़िया विश्वजीत, बहुत ही खूबसूरत आपकी जर्नी। आप सबसे पहले ये जानना चाहेंगे, तो पहले तो हम आपके करंट जॉब के बारे में जानना चाहेंगे और फिर ये भी समझना चाहेंगे सेकेंड हाफ में कि कैसे कोई भी जो स्टूडेंट आज की डेट में सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर बनना चाहता है वो कैसे अराइव कर सकता है। तो सबसे पहले जानना चाहेंगे कि एज अ सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर गूगल में आपकी जॉब के इंटरेस्टिंग एस्पेक्ट्स क्या हैं?
हाँ, so दो चीजें हैं, एटलीस्ट आई फाइंड दोस टू इंटरेस्टिंग. One is there are lots of very challenging technical problems that a software engineer can solve at Google. Many other places, but that's very interesting for me. Hard technical problems to solve, right? The other part is there are lots of very smart people who also want to solve these problems, and we solve these problems together. Like maybe it's very difficult for one person to solve it. When 5 people come together or 10 people come together, you can actually break it down and solve it together. You learn from each other. So that is very exciting for me. And then when you see the problem solved and users actually using your feature, that's very gratifying. So that's what I say. The challenging problem and the people that you work with are kind of aspects. I can give an example. This is from a couple of years ago in my time in Android. So Google has always had a very nice personalized news experience on your Android phone, which was available for high-end devices like Pixel and other like high-end devices, right? And Pixel is like 40,000 to 60,000 in India, right? And it's a very nice feature. It understands what you're doing, like what news you like. It personalizes it, shows you high quality data, and keeps you informed about things, right on like Android like surface. So one of the things we in India were thinking was, can we actually bring this to lots and lots of Indian users? In India, a lot of people buy low-end phones, right? 4,000 phones, 6,000 phones, so on. A lot of people buy like low-end, but this feature is so interesting for everyone, right? Like having interesting, very highly personalized news that actually learns like what you like and keeps you informed is very helpful for everyone. So can we take feature built for like high-end phone? It required a lot of CPU, a lot of memory, storage, and all those things. Can we really shrink it to make it work on this? That was like a very challenging problem. Like six of us got together and like kaise solve karna hai, break it down, and then over a 9 month period, we systematically kind of solved it and took it to our users. So that is one example of an interesting problem. And then working as a team to actually solve it and then see your users use it, that's kind of gratifying, right? That's what I would say interesting about
नहीं,
this like
बहुत
role.
ही बढ़िया कि 60,000 रुपए के फोन में जो फीचर है उसको कैसे हमें 4,000 रुपए के फोन में लेकर आए, क्योंकि वहां पे भी उसकी जरूरत है और उससे उस फीचर का भी एनहांसमेंट होगा। आई थिंक बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम है। तो विश्वजीत, वैसे तो बहुत सारी इंटरेस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं, पर लोग कहते हैं कि कोई भी जॉब जो होता है वो थोड़े समय के बाद मोनोटोनस और रिपीटिटिव और बोरिंग जिसे कहते हैं हो जाता है। तो आपको क्या लगता है कि आपका जॉब में भी कुछ मोनोटोनी या कुछ बोरिंग है, और इसको कैसे आप हैंडल करते हैं?
हाँ, सो हमारा इंडस्ट्री जो है लाइक टेक, लाइक टेक्नोलॉजी इंडस्ट्री, it's very fast moving. So like you like things are always changing, and you have to keep in touch with it and keep getting better. So that itself will break your monotony. Outside of that, like what I have a principle to follow. If you're doing the same thing 3 times, you have to automate it. And then automate it, make the problem go away, and then find some new problem that is interesting to solve. So that's how that's what I try to do, because that keeps me working on something new on a regular basis, learning new things. And that's what I tell like people in my team, especially more junior people early in their career. This is how you like automate yourself out of your job and then find another interesting thing. And that's how you learn continuously. I'm reminded of one example when we were in Maps team. Now, so Maps has 2 types of maps. One is a satellite image map, which shows you trees and all the things. And then there is the road map, like proper road and icons and so on. Na? So photos get upgraded all the time, like every few weeks or few months. And every time the satellite photo or image is taken, like the photo is either slightly to the left or slightly to the right, and it doesn't perfectly like go with the regular roads or regular buildings. So we used to do this manually. Every time there is a new satellite map, you manually like move things around to align. Then a few of us said, okay, why don't we automate this, right? So then we used computer image recognition techniques and some algorithms to kind of say, okay, automatically do it on a regular basis. And once the problem is solved, you get as many new data, we don't have to solve it. And then we can go after solving something else, right? So this is an example of if you do it again and again, it becomes monotonous. But always like trying to think of how do you automate it and try something else is how I would say you break that monotony.
तो आपने बहुत अच्छा बताया कि कैसे जॉब इंटरेस्टिंग भी है और मोनोटोनस हो सकता है, पर आप उसको सॉल्व करें। पर एक ड्राइव होता है, जैसे कि ना कि हमें इस जॉब के पीक तक जाना है, टॉप पे जाना है। तो एज अ सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर गूगल में आपके हिसाब से क्या है पीक, और कैसे वो डिफरेंशिएटेड होता है, उसमें काम कैसे चेंज होता है, जो आप पहले करते थे और आज कर रहे हैं, और जब उस पीक पे पहुंचेंगे तो उसमें?
So in a lot of high tech industry, this is like across the high tech industry, there are many levels. So even at Google, like we are all software engineers, but there are many levels. I started as a like fresh out of college. I was a junior software engineer, and then like as you get more experience and you're solving bigger problems, you get a senior software engineer. There is staff, senior staff, distinguished engineers, and then the most senior most position for an engineer at Google is fellow. Same with the rest of the industry as well. So to think of what kind of problems, so like these senior fellows, they are actually solving very large technical problems that can transform the industry. So for example, self-driving car, like how do you technically make a car drive itself? That's a very challenging technical problem. And if you solve it, it can really transform the industry and benefit the user, right? Similarly, so many people are taking photos. 20 years ago, very few people took any photos. Now you have trillions and trillions of photos. Everybody is taking. You need a cheap way to store all of it. How do you actually build a storage system that can take high-end photos and store it, but also in a very cheap manner, right? And that can really transform the industry. Or AI, right? How do you build AI technologies which are 10 times, 100 times more complex than what they are today? And that can again transform the industry. So these are the kind of large, like impossible sounding technical problems that a Google fellow or like somebody peak in our industry would be tackling, right? And when they solve something, it actually has the entire industry benefits from such problems being solved.
सिर्फ गूगल के लिए सॉल्व नहीं कर रहे, वो पूरी टेक्नोलॉजी इंडस्ट्री के लिए सॉल्व करते हैं उस लेवल। और सो ये सारा काम जब आप करते हैं, इतने डिफरेंट डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट्स, आपने एग्जांपल दिए सर्च का, एंड्रॉइड का, आपका एक टिपिकल डे कैसा रहता है? क्या एक नॉर्मल डे या एक वीक आपका कैसे आप प्लान करते हैं और उसको कैसे एग्जीक्यूट करते हैं?
हाँ, सो सॉफ्टवेयर इंजीनियर का जो लाइफ है ना, सो आई पर्सनली plan on a weekly basis, not on a daily basis. There are few things that I do on a regular week. Early on a Monday, I plan for the rest of the week. What are the things I absolutely need to do? Then we have team meeting, team huddle or team meeting that we have early in the week regularly. We discuss what is the plan and what do we do and so on. And middle, like I have meetings with my peers, my manager, those are all there. Late in the week, I actually spend some introspecting. We have a fun event in the team on a regular basis ki ha kuch time pass karte hain, like we spend some time together as a time. So these are things that are there throughout the week, but rest of the time I'll explain a project ki what happens in a project. So and then that is what happens different parts time of the week. So in a project so starting with problem kya solve karni hai, and like engineers come together, the product managers, the data scientists, the UX designers, they all come together. This is the user problem that we want to solve. And then we scope it. We call it project scoping. And then the engineers come in and say, how do we design? Like, how do we design this solution? What is the technical solution? We brainstorm ideas. We come together. This is how we do. And then we get experts to give us feedback. And some expert will say, you know what? This is very expensive. You try this other technique. Or this can actually work in a much larger manner than this one, or this has an issue. Like they give us feedback on it, so it improves our design. And then usually we have like 3-4 people working on a team. We do this, and then it goes into coding or implementation. So we break this into smaller pieces. Each person has takes a project, takes a task. We implement it end to end. When I implement something, I share it with you, saying, "Can you give me feedback? Is it understandable? Is it efficient? Is it too complex, or is it simple?" So that you can give me feedback. And then when you write something, I'll give you feedback so that what we submit is actually high quality, right? And then the feature is ready. We ship it to the users, and that is the project lifecycle. So usually in a week, usually you are assigned 1 or 2 projects, and you're doing some of the activities about this. You're either doing design or coding, like giving feedback is kind of a regular basis. So those are the kind of activities that you do on a regular basis as a software engineer.
ग्रेट। तो आपने बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स की बात बताई। जो सबसे कॉमन सारे यूजर जो गूगल का फंक्शन यूज करते हैं वो है गूगल का सर्च। तो सर्च में कुछ इंटरेस्टिंग कोई प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग अगर आपने करी हो और उसके बारे में अगर बताएं तो आई थिंक बहुत अच्छी लर्निंग रहेगी।
या सो सर्च में ना एक रिसेंट सा प्रॉब्लम है। दिस वाज समथिंग अ सीनियर इंजीनियर वाज टैकलिंग कि इंडिया में ना for computers there is Hindi, there is English, there are languages, right? But we people don't use one language. We mix language all the time. So India there is English. You mix these two languages, and you use more Hindi, and your English is different from my English. Right. And when you're typing, you're saying Hindi, but you're typing in an English keyboard. That's also a type of English. So this mix of language is a very interesting problem. How do you solve it? Mm-hmm. And that would be a problem. Again, we take this and break it down into what are the ways that we solve it, we break it into sub projects, and then as a team we solve it together. So this is an interesting problem, and if you solve it, search becomes very natural for users. You don't have to change how you speak for search. Search actually understands how you speak, right? So that is the benefit that we can bring if we really understand this mixed language really well.
हाँ, जैसे कि मतलब अगर मैंने लिखा कि विराट कोहली ने फर्स्ट ओडीआई सेंचुरी कब मारी, तो ये इसमें सेंचुरी इंग्लिश हो गया, कब मारी हिंदी हो गया, अब और इसको टाइप में पूरा इंग्लिश में कर रहा हूँ, तो कैसे इसको रीड करेंगे और इसका रिजल्ट मुझे सर्च से मिलेगा, ये बहुत एक इंटरेस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम आपने बताई। तो बहुत सारी आपने विश्वजीत बहुत सारी इंटरेस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम्स बताई, अलग अलग गूगल के वर्टिकल्स के बारे में हमने बात करी, जॉब की कंटिन्यूटी, मोनोटोनस, बट इन सब तक पहुंचा कैसे जाए, क्योंकि इतना इंटरेस्टिंग जॉब है ये। तो इसका स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट क्या है, अगर एक स्टूडेंट के या एक अर्ली यंग प्रोफेशनल के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से हम पूछें कि हाउ डज वन स्टार्ट?
So there are a couple of things I advise to people early in their career or still as students. When it comes to so you can be a computer science grad, like in like engineering industry, any engineering discipline or other areas as well, right? MCA and other things. So the first thing is you coding or programming. So build that expertise on how to become a good programmer. Learn that skill. And so for this you have to practice, and like you should get better, try things and learn from those things. The second thing I usually suggest people is understand how things fit together, and kind of solve, like how can you solve a larger problem by connecting different solutions together. So it's also called technical design. So how do you design a large problem? It's not just coding one piece, but making sure that a large problem is broken into smaller problems, and each of them you find the right solution, you code it up, and you make sure those things connect together. And you also need to know how do these designs work so that you can also design. So coding is one very critical skill. System design is another critical skill. So these are the things that you should focus on earlier on and build very deep expertise. Right? So that's the general advice I give to people.
तो जो कोडिंग है या प्रोग्रामिंग लॉजिक के ऊपर जो कमांड है, इसको प्रैक्टिस कैसे करें किसी भी, क्योंकि एक सर्टेन लेवल तक आपको जाना है, एक सर्टेन कंपनी की प्रोसेस को क्लियर करना है, तो इसके लिए क्या एडवाइस या क्या प्रोसेस हो सकता है?
That's a very good question. So I would say there are a few things to do. So to build expertise as a student, I'll tell you how I was actually trying to do as well. So as a student, you have a lot of books, or like there is a coding websites where you can get a problem and you can solve it. There are books which has like problems, easy, medium, hard problems. So you practice it, you implement it, and then one of the most important things is you look at it and say, how can I write this better, improve it? Can it be easier to read? Can it be more efficient? Can it be more reusable? And all those things. How can I do this better? And then introspect. Right. The other thing is talking to other people who are like you. Okay? How can we come together and actually make this better and learn from each other? So that was one thing as a student that I did. Like not only solving hard problems and practicing on a regular basis, but looking at the solution, saying, can I do this better in the future? Right. So that is how you build deeper and deeper expertise and get better practice. The second thing is, especially after I joined Google, learn from other experts. So I would always try to look at, I had a technical lead who was very senior, like who had spent 10 years in the industry and was an expert at program. So I would try to see how does my tech lead write code? Like why would they do this versus that? And then I would talk to them. Why did you do this? Why not this? What were you like? How were you thinking about this solution? How were you thinking about this code? And then I understand and try to apply some of these in my own work. And the other thing is, whenever I write code, I send it to him or somebody like him to get feedback. What can I do better? So earlier on, I would get 20 comments. This can be done better. This can be done differently. This is inefficient, and so on and so on. And then you make note, you learn there, and then you try to apply that in your future work. So if you do that again and again, suddenly, like over time, the quality of your work keeps getting better, and you also understand like how do experts write code, and then start incorporating more and more things into your work, right? So that's what it's a practice, looking at your own work and getting better at it, and looking at other people's work and learning from it, and talking to them and getting their feedback. So these are like 3-4 ways that I would say that you can build expertise on like any language.
ओके बहुत बढ़िया। तो आई थिंक ये तीनों स्टेप बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। आप कुछ एग्जांपल देना चाहेंगे कि कौन से पहले कुछ आपने कुछ सॉफ्टवेयर्स बनाए या कुछ प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग करके देखी जो आपको अभी भी याद है कि वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग था उस समय के हिसाब से? और
एक्चुअली एक तो है, सो फर्स्ट ईयर कंप्यूटर साइंस डिग्री में a few of us we said एक गेम बनाते हैं. Actually one of my team like classmates said, oh, I'll do a game, small simple, very simple racing game. Like it was not very nice to see how you can do left, right, up, down and accelerate, like very small. It would keep a score and so on, but it allowed us to use a lot of things. And then we wrote it. Everybody was excited. Hum karte hain. Like 5-6 people wrote it. And then we shared ideas. Okay, what did you do? How did you solve this problem? How did you solve that problem? And then we went back and then we built an even better version of it. Right. So I'm like, while I'm proud of it, I don't think it's a very great game. Like it had a lot of very simple, stupid things. Sure. But it was a good learning exercise. And then you also learn from other people. Now that was the most powerful thing. Like somebody figured out a different way to solve the problem. I learned from it. That person learned how I did it, and then we all got better as programmers as a side effect. So that's the first example that comes to my mind.
बहुत बढ़िया विश्वजीत। तो बहुत सारे जो यंग एम्बिशियस कोडर्स हैं जो गूगल में या बड़ी सॉफ्टवेयर कंपनीज में एंट्री पाना चाहते हैं, उनके लिए आप क्या कुछ एडवाइस या अपने वर्ड्स ऑफ विजडम शेयर करना चाहेंगे जिससे कि वो अपने आप को सही डायरेक्शन में प्रिपेयर कर सके, सही चीजों पे फोकस कर सके और अपने गोल्स को अचीव कर सके?
So a few things. So this is some principle that I try to apply to myself, and I also tell to a lot of people, like especially junior people in my team, on what to prioritize early in your career, right? So first thing is excellence. So I always tell people, what is the gold standard of solving something? Like what is the best way to implement this? Easiest way, most efficient, most elegant way to solve a problem, right? And you should always try to aim for it. Like if you just do good enough, then you'll never build that expertise and actually know what is really the best in class for anything, right? So I would say always try to think of what is best in class or gold standard and try to adopt it. It could be in your designs, it could be in your code, when you're testing, anything, right? So that is one thing. Focus on excellence. The second thing I suggest people is expertise. There is no shortcut to building deep expertise in something. So whenever you're tackling a problem, ask why. Like, why is it the way it is? Why did this person do this? What were they thinking? And go deeper and deeper. Like that, when you go deeper into that area, you become really an expert in that area. And sometimes you also have to go know a little bit of broader area as well. So you go deeper into some area and know everything about that small area. And then you know a little bit about a broader area. Right? That is the expertise. So always seeking how to become an expert in an area. If you keep focusing on it, like that is the second part I recommend people. The third part is like always focused on learning. Like our industry especially is very fast moving. 20 years ago, web was a thing. And 15 years ago, mobile came in. Like nobody knew mobile will do what it did. Like Android and iOS, the apps became a thing. And like that kind of disrupted the entire tech industry. Then like 10 years ago, AI really became big. It started solving problems that it couldn't solve in the past. And it's still there. Like even today, there are new breakthroughs that AI is doing. And even in India, now, like payments, like 5 years ago, payments had a revolution. And I don't know what else will happen in 5 years, right? Like that's the thing. So you should always have that growing mindset. Like the industry is always changing. I want to keep learning and growing is a third thing, right? Like if you focus on these three, one is focus on excellence, like be like what is the best thing and try to emulate it. Expertise, I want to go deeper and know like really, really deep understanding of my area. The third one is like always learning continuously. It's not like I learned this and I'm going to do the same thing for 20 years, but always learning new things and stay on top of what the industry is doing. Right? So these are the three things. It's especially important for early, but I think it's a like I still like follow the same three things even today.
ग्रेट ग्रेट विषय। और अभी जैसे इंडस्ट्री में बहुत सारे अप्स एंड डाउन्स होते हैं, टर्न ऑफ इवेंट्स हो रहे हैं, तो इसके बारे में कैसे, मतलब लोग बड़े कभी कभी स्टूडेंट्स से मैं बात करता हूँ एंग्शियस हो जाते हैं इन चीजों को, हाउ डज वन हैंडल अप्स एंड डाउन्स?
That is true. Especially abhi na, technical tech industry is going through like a lot of challenging situations, right, across the entire industry, right? So the way I think about it is I focus on the fundamentals, and that's what I suggest people to do. I told you the three things, right? Always to make sure you have depth, right? You don't have superficial knowledge, you have deep expertise in an area. You actually go after like excellence, right? Like you do things really, really well, and you're adaptive and you're learning new things. If you do that, you will always be on top of things, and there'll be ups and downs in the industry. See, there are things we control, there are things we don't control. So I focus on the things we control. So these are the things I focus on. I'm always learning, I'm always like focusing on like being better and better every day. There are times when the industry is in a tough situation, it'll affect us in some way, but usually when you focus on the fundamentals, you will be better off as well.
ग्रेट। आई थिंक विश्वजीत, बहुत सारे टॉपिक्स पे हमने बात करी, कई सारे इंटरेस्टिंग सर्च, मैप्स, एंड्रॉयड, सारे प्रोजेक्ट्स के बारे में हमने बात करी, आपकी जर्नी के बारे में, कैसे कंटिन्यूसली हम लर्न कर सकते हैं, स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं, और क्या चीजें ध्यान रखने वाली, कौन से फंडामेंटल प्रिंसिपल्स हैं, और कैसे इंडस्ट्री के अप्स एंड डाउन से घबराना नहीं है और वो चीजों को कंट्रोल करें जो आप कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं। राइट, थैंक यू सो मच विश्वजीत, बाय।
थैंक यू, थैंक्स अ लॉट।
राइट विश्वजीत, एंड सभी व्यूअर्स के लिए इसी तरह के और भी इंटरेस्टिंग जॉब्स के बारे में हम अपनी इस सीरीज में और भी गेस्ट को लेकर आते रहेंगे। अगर आज का वीडियो आपको अच्छा लगा हो तो इसको लाइक करिएगा, और इसी तरह के और वीडियोस को देखने के लिए हमारे चैनल नौकरी पक्की को सब्सक्राइब करिएगा। थैंक यू एंड ऑल द बेस्ट। अगर आपके पास कोई भी क्वेश्चंस हैं, आप हमारे इस ईमेल आईडी पे हमें मेल कर सकते हैं या नीचे कमेंट सेक्शन में लिख के हमसे पूछ सकते हैं, हम जरूर आपका जवाब